because he's already prepared for what I might do. He knows what I'm going to do before I do it, and he already made preparation for me before I get there. What follows darkness is light. That darkness is the indicator that light is getting ready to shine. So there it is in Genesis, when darkness was upon the face of the deep, and God in the spirit form moved upon the face of the waters, and then God said, let there be. Because darkness precedes the light. Are you understanding what I'm saying? But he needs the darkness there so that God can move upon the face of the deep, so that the shift can take place. Let's look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor that shift take place in the darkness. Oh God, y'all didn't hear what I just said. Everybody's not going to see the shift that's happening. They see the chaos, but they don't see the shift. They see all the craziness going on in your life, but they don't understand that underneath the darkness, God is moving in secret. He's moving in quiet. He's moving in the hidden places. He's moving in the cracks and the corners and the crevices. He's moving in places that you cannot see. And when the light comes, they're going to see a new order. Afraid to dream, afraid to imagine. But I'm here to tell you that you are an infinite, limitless, boundless being. Are you willing to do what is necessary to have what you desire?
Thank you for joining us. Please take a moment and like the Facebook page. Subscribe to the YouTube page and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when we go live. If you are finding value in these enrichment sessions, please consider supporting this page financially. Your donations allow us to continue to provide spiritual enlightenment, self-exploration, and kingdom knowledge. Also, consider becoming a partner because partnerships have this privilege. As a partner, you'll be able to attend our annual Partners Only Summer Summit, join us for our 6 a.m. virtual daily guided meditation sessions, weekly advanced empowerment sessions, regular prophetic insights and instructions, 30% discount on all Emerge books and merchandise, and a custom Emerge t-shirt. You'll also gain full access to the private Emerge Movement community page as well as group chats. Once again, thank you for watching.
Good morning, everybody. I know I'm a little bit late getting on this morning, but welcome to the Emerge Movement. I am your host, Isaac J. Miles Sr., and I'm so glad that you've chosen to join me this morning for this enlightening, empowering, conscious conversation that we're going to have this morning. Thank you for every single one of you that are tuned in right now and participating in this conversation. Forgive my tardiness. I'm telling you, it's just no excuse, but I'm here. And I'm so glad that you are here as well. And so we're going to get into our conversation for this morning. Before we do, I'm going to ask you if you will please do me the genuine favor of just taking a moment and liking this particular broadcast and sharing it on your page. Hit the share button. It only takes about 15 to 20 seconds for you to do it. Hit the share button, share it on your page so that those who are lurking and searching and looking on your page will see this broadcast and hopefully tune in and participate in the conversation. Also, I ask you, please, if you do not mind, to just begin to tag your friends, families, and everyone that you know in the comments and invite them to come and be a part of the conversation as well this morning. Those of you who are watching us via YouTube, you can hit the share button and then just copy the link. And how about send it out in your group chat and send it out to your family and friends and loved ones and invite them to come and participate in this conscious conversation that will empower their life. The purpose behind Emerge is to empower you with all of the tools necessary for you to create, cultivate, and curate the life that you desire. I'm not here to try and tell you what to do, tell you what to think, how to think, who to be. It is up to you clearly to be and to become anything that you desire in this life. I am here to just give you the tools to access your own divinity and begin to plot your path forward so that you can live the best, greatest, and highest version and vision of your life. Again, thank you for tuning in. I am so glad that you are here. I wanted to talk, and I chose a topic this morning that is a little bit broad, and that was on purpose, because I'm going to incorporate a number of things into this particular topic. And so the topic that you see written in the description is the principle of oneness. The principle of oneness, our interconnectedness with each other, with the universe around us, with the nature that surrounds us, with everything that exists in this dimension and across the multiverse in the various multifaceted dimensions that exist. I left it again broad on purpose because I'm going to begin in one place and then travel to another. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to begin in one area kind of to give us a foundation upon which we can build, and we will ultimately end with a robust conversation around the principle of oneness, its implications, and what that means to us, and how it can serve us in cultivating our life. But in order for me to get you to that conversation, I want to begin in another place that could be its own conversation by itself. But I'm going to try and incorporate it into this one, and we can just have a robust conversation around both principles and both topics and subjects as we matriculate our way through.
So I hope that doesn't sound too complex or complicated. I don't think that it is. I know that those of you who follow this particular platform and are tuning in are intelligent, critical thinkers, and so it's not a difficult task for you to be able to do. So I'm going to begin by reading a passage from the Bible. And I know we don't always read a particular passage from a sacred text, whether it's the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita, or Book of Tao, or whatever, the Torah. But today I want to use one of the principles found in the Bible, one of the principles as well as the patterns. Remember that the Bible is a book of principles, practices, and patterns. Spiritual principles, spiritual practices, spiritual patterns. So is the Quran, so is every other sacred text. All of them are that. They were never meant to be taken literally. They were never meant to be a roadmap or a guide or a rule book that you're supposed to follow for the entirety of your life that constrains and confines you to being tied and tethered to what it says. And that's the reason that, the Bible and the Quran and other sacred texts have been used by religious people as a cudgel, as a hammer, to beat people over the head with, because they really never understood what the purpose of these written texts were, what the purpose of these stories, these allegories were, what the purposes of these recorded events were, historical events. And so they, began to use them as a tool or as a weapon to either beat those who object or don't conform to their particular ideology or belief, to beat them across the head, crucify them, and justify sending them off into some torment or damnation. Or they use it to manipulate and to control those who do ascribe to their particular religious ideology and keep them aligned with them, conformed to their particular brand of religion. But in fact, collectively, if you were to do an exhaustive study, comprehensive study of all of the sacred texts that are available from every religious persuasion, you would find a huge amount of commonality in all of them, because they all espouse essentially the same spiritual principles, practices, and patterns. They all do. And so, that then is reasonable to conclude that their purpose, their underlying purpose, the substratum, foundational purpose of these spiritual texts is to give us access to these spiritual principles, practices, and patterns so that we're able to access our own divinity and begin to create, cultivate, and curate the life that we desire. Whew. That's a long way around to say that I'm going to read something from the Bible. But anyway, but I'm very thorough. If those of you who follow this platform know that I am. So I tend to explain or over-explain certain things again and again, because I just want to be sure that everybody understands them and is on the same page. So I want to begin the conversation today by reading this passage from Romans chapter 8, verses 29 through 33. Okay. Romans chapter 8, verses 29 through 33. And it's okay if you're not familiar with what this particular text says, or if you are familiar with it. And if you have a Bible on your device or a physical Bible. Does anybody really have physical Bibles anymore? Probably not very many people. But if you have it on your device, or if you have a physical Bible, you can turn there and read with me so that you can be assured of what it says. I'm going to read it, start at verse 29 and end at verse, not 33, 31. I'm sorry, I'm going to end at verse 31. Okay, and I'm going to read it from the King James Version. You can read it from whatever version that you desire. It's fine. Okay, but I'm going to read from the King James Version just for the sake of familiarity. Everybody's pretty well familiar with King James. All right, here's what it says. For whom he did foreknow. For whom he did foreknow. The he, which is, in this particular context or text, is God. So the he here, whom God did foreknow, whom all of everything the Creator did foreknow. All right. For whom he, God, did foreknow, he, God, also did predestine. Now, listen to this. This is a text that is often misquoted and thereby misunderstood. Because to be predestined means to be predetermined, okay? That a particular path or a particular event has already been decided, leaving the persons affected by that particular decision without a choice. And most people stop there or put a period there, and predestinate is a word, just a simple word in the midst of an entire sentence that if you read the sentence in its context, it makes more sense. When you leave it with a period, then it transforms the text and pretty much says that all of us are just automatons. We are just robots that are and actors living out a play that has already been written by God, and we're just fulfilling our role in the script. That's not what this text says. And I know I'm venturing off a little bit because this is a commonly misunderstood, misquoted, and misused text. And I want to make sure that we understand exactly what it says. So I'm going to read it as it is written. This is not deep. This is not some deep supernatural spiritual revelation. This is just English. Okay, this is just comprehending English. For whom he, God, did foreknow, he, God, also did predestinate to. So it specifies what was predestinated. Okay, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son. What did he predestinate? He predestinated all of humanity, all of mankind, to be conformed to the image of his Son. What did he predestinate? What was predetermined? What was decided upon prior to our coming into this three-dimensional existence? That all of humanity would be conformed into the image of the Son. That's Christ. Okay? Now we're going to unpack what that means and the implications thereof in a little bit. Okay? For whom he, God, did foreknow, he, God, also did predestinate to be conformed into the image of the Son, that is Christ. That Christ, that is Christ the Son, might be the firstborn among many brethren. Okay? That he might be the firstborn of many brethren. It goes on. Moreover, continuing, whom he did predestine, that's all of humanity, to be conformed into the image of his Son, them he also called, summoned. That's purpose. Called, summoned, selected, and whom he also called, summoned, and selected for purpose, to fulfill a particular purpose, them he also justified. He removed all barriers and all separation and all delineation between itself, God, and its creation that is predestined to be in the image of the Christ, he justified. That means they could do no wrong. Justified. When I was in the Christian church, they would say, just if I had never done anything before, if I had never sinned, okay? But justified, could do no wrong, had access to it. There were no barriers, okay? And whom he justified, them he also glorified. Okay, this word has a dual meaning to it in the Greek. It means to uplift and to exalt and to magnify and to praise, but it also means to infuse with knowing, knowledge, understanding, insight, and revelation. And then he ends the text, or doesn't end the text, but ends this particular dialogue by attaching a poignant question. What then shall we say to these things? What is the conclusion that we can arrive at from these facts that I just told you? The fact that all of humanity is predestined to be created in the image of the Son, that all of humanity would be called with a particular purpose or reason, an original intent, that all of humanity who he called would also be free and unbound, not constrained by particular rules, ideologies, dogma, or legalism. And all of humanity would be exalted, magnified, glorified, praised, and infused with an intuitive knowing, understanding, revelation, and insight. He says, what do we say about these things? Man, what conclusion can we come to about a species that exists with all of this, the backing of God, all of this infused within them? The conclusion he comes to is, if God is for you, who can be against you? A better translation would be, since God has chosen to do all of this in you and for you, nothing could ever be against you. Whew. Can we unpack? Can we unpack? Can we unpack? I'm going to go back and unpack that a little bit more, go into a little bit more depth and detail. And remember, this is in service of our getting to the principle of oneness. But please understand that this particular text, in its context, does not single out any particular religious persuasion. It is a general statement of fact and truth, pattern and principle. Let me say that again. It is a general statement of fact and truth, pattern and principle. It speaks to the nature, character, and the mode of operation of God, pattern of God. Who did God foreknow? Okay, let's first unpack that word foreknowledge, foreknow. Whom he, God, did foreknow. To foreknow means to know beforehand. In order for something to be known or someone to be known beforehand, they must exist in some place, some form, in order to be known. You cannot know someone who is unknowable. You cannot know someone who does not exist. You can't know someone that is yet to come into some type of formation or existence in order to be known. That is, the word known literally means to be intimate with, to be close with, to be intertwined with, to have full insight and intimacy into. So in order to be known, in order for that type of intimacy to exist, you have to exist. And the text says that God foreknew, that is, knew all beforehand, knew before, which means then that we had to exist in some space or place, in some form, shape, something, prior to our entering into this three-dimensional world. Before what? Before the beginnings of the world, before the foundations of the world, before there was ever a let there be, before there was ever a creation, we existed as an entity somehow, in some way, somewhere. Okay? Well, then who did God foreknow? That's us. And where did we exist? And how did we exist? Okay? Well, if you're following along with the device or Bible, I'm going to answer that question by quoting or reading another text from the same Bible. Ephesians chapter 1. Oh, I hit the wrong button right there. There we go. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 4. Well, let's start at verse 3 to get context. Okay, we'll start at verse 3, just for context. Okay, it reads, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord and Jesus Christ." So we know who the Son is because we're talking about God and Father of who? The Lord, Jesus the Christ. Christ is not his middle name or his last name. Jesus was the earthly name given it. Christ describes its divinity, God's divinity. Jesus the Christ, who has blessed us with all spiritual blessings, where? In heavenly places. Who has already blessed us with all spiritual blessings. What are those spiritual blessings? Being destined to be conformed into the image of the Son, being called with a specific purpose, an intention, being justified, that is, being given liberty, freedom of access, movement, and being glorified, being exalted above all other creation, highly praised and infused with intuitive knowledge, knowing and understanding and insight. He says, God has already blessed us with all of those spiritual blessings. Where did he bless us with all of those spiritual blessings? In heavenly places, in places outside of this three-dimensional realm, in a celestial realm. He goes on to clarify and to further expand that thought. According as he has chosen us, selected us, called us with purpose and destiny and intent in himself. He uses the male pronoun, but we do understand that God is neither male nor female. So God chose us where? Inside of itself. So where did we exist? Where was this heavenly place? Where was this celestial plane? Where was this supernatural place of existence that we were foreknown, had intimacy and closeness and oneness with God? We existed in our pre-incarnated state in God. God chose, selected, and blessed us with all of those spiritual blessings in himself. When did he choose us and select us for principle and bless us with all of these spiritual blessings? The text goes on to say, before the foundation of the world. What? When? Before there was ever a Genesis narrative, before there was ever a let there be, before there was in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. Before any of that took place, we existed in God, were selected and given given purpose and destiny in God, were predestined to be conformed into the image of the Son in God. We were predestined to be like Christ in God. We were determined, and it was decided that we would be like Christ in God. We were called, that is, selected for purpose in God. We were free from all error, from all sin, from all constraints in God. And we were glorified, lifted up, raised above all of the creation, and infused with an intuitive knowing, understanding, and insight in God before the foundation of the world. Are you hearing me? Are you following? Come on, stay with me. Okay? All of this was done prior to our coming into this three-dimensional existence, prior to our taking human form. Not just prior to your mom and dad, your grandmom and your granddaddy, your great-grandmom and your granddaddy, and your ancestors ever getting together and meeting each other. No. All of that is involved. But this was prior to there was anything called planet Earth. Before there was anything, we were, and we existed in God. So that when God said, let there be light, we were there flipping the switch. That's metaphorically, of course. Okay? We were the ones screwing in the light bulb. We were there. We existed in an eternal state of being. We were in God. Now, hold on. Since God is divine, all-knowing, always present in every place at all times, all-powerful, okay? So since those things describe the divinity of God, omniscient, all-knowing, omnipotent, all-powerful, omnipresent in every place at all times, omniactive, eternally creative and moving. And we were in God, that is, one with God, then it goes to reason that we were just as God. You can't be in God and be not like God. So we were God, and God was us, and we were God, and God was us. And then God, speaking to itself, chose a part of itself and said, I'm going to bless you in this heavenly place and infuse you with these heavenly gifts before the foundations of the world. Watch this. Here's the last part of that verse. Here's the last part of that verse that religious people don't want you to know, especially in the Christian church, and I can talk about it because I was in it for so long. The last part of the verse, after it says, blessed be the God of our Father, Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in all with all spiritual blessings in heavenly places in Christ, according as he has chosen us in himself before the foundations of the world. Here's the last part of the verse. That we should be holy, Holy, and without blame, before him in love. How did he create us? Holy, without blame, before him in love. I know I just messed up a lot of Christian theology. How were we created? We were created predestined to be in the likeness of the Christ, to be just like Christ, to be Christ in the earth. We were predestined to be just like Christ in the earth, conformed. That means we have to go through the process of being Christ, just as Jesus had to go through the process of being Christ. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay? Conformed to the image of the Christ, to be Christ in the earth. And because we were destined, it was predetermined that we would be conformed to the image of Christ, to be Christ in the earth. Since that was already decided, then he also gave us purpose, calling. He also gave us liberty, justification. He also gave us elevation, glorification, along with spiritual insight, intuitive senses. And he does all of this. Why? So we could be holy, set apart for a specific and sacred use. That's what the word holy means, hagios in the Greek. Holy simply means set apart for a specific and sacred use. Ain't got nothing to do with your hair, ain't got nothing to do with your lipstick, ain't got nothing to do with your clothes, ain't got nothing to do with whether you drink or whether you smoke weed or whether you having sex or anything else like that. That's not holiness. That's not holiness. Go ahead, look it up. Look in your Bible, look in your Greek lexicon, look in your dictionary, look in whatever else you want to look in. You will never find in the definition of what it means to be holy all of this other nonsense that everybody has attached to it. It simply means that you have been set apart, set aside for sacred use. But then he went on to say, not just set aside, set apart for a sacred use, but that you would also be blameless. Because remember, if we possess all of these characteristics, what shall we say to these things then? If God is for us, who could ever blame us? Who could ever be against us? And since nobody else, since God doesn't blame us, nobody else can blame us. I'm going to let that soak for a minute. Sipping my tea. That's a ginger and lemon tea. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. God doesn't blame you for anything. God is not out to get you. God's not mad at you. God's not separated from you. God's not angry at you. God is not vexed with you. God is not against you. God's not fighting against you, nor is it fighting for you. Whole nother conversation. Well, it's not, though. It fights as you. Okay? God does not blame you. Now, church folk might, religious people might. We full of fingers to point and accusations and condemnations and you can't be saved and holy because over here in holiness we don't do that. We don't behave like that over here in holiness. Nonsense. They redefined what holiness is rather than what the actual word means. The actual word simply means that you were set aside for a sacred use. Set aside, set apart for a sacred use. But then the text goes on to say you were created blameless. Blameless. Why? Because you're already justified. Before the foundations of the world, you were already justified. So how could anyone assess blame to someone that is already justified? How can you assess blame to someone who has already been justified, adjudicated innocent? How can you assess blame? Yet that is all that religious worlds and society does, is assess blame. It is a manipulative, controlling tool used by religious leaders across the spectrum, from Christianity to Taoism, to keep people under the thumb and living in fear. Fear of their leaders, fear of God, fear of themselves, fear of living. Do you realize how many religious people die having never lived? Do you realize how many religious people die having never lived because they will live their entire life in fear? Like crossing the Grand Canyon on a tightrope. They walk that tightrope with such fear that one false move would cause them to fall off and fall to their death down into a burning eternal pit of hell where the worm dieth not, and they would be tormented for eternity with fire and brimstone. And so they spent their entire life laser focused on trying to walk that tightrope across the Grand Canyon, terrified of ever making a false move, of ever stepping off the line, slipping and falling to their eternal death, left to the mercy of a God that they created that has an ego that has to decide whether he's going to catch them or not. When the God of that's not the God of the Bible. That is not the God of the Bible. I'm telling you, well, in some places it is, because in some places in the Bible, they make God out to be this terrible, horrific, insecure tyrant. But overall, that's not the God of the Bible. That's not the God that's being described here. The God that is being described in this particular text made a conscious, deliberate, intentional choice to create humanity with the ultimate liberty and the ultimate liberty of experience, so that it could create, cultivate, curate, and live a life free of blame, guilt, shame, and condemnation. That's in your book. That's in your Bible. He said the whole point of your being chosen, selected, given purpose and intent was so that you could live freely, without blame, knowing that you were set aside for a sacred responsibility or purpose. Come on. Am I getting through? Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Because I'm going to go further and it gets deeper, but I want to make sure that you're with me. This is the reason that I started from this point. Because if you don't start from this point, then the principle of oneness is not going to really matter much to you. It's not going to really be able to take advantage of the implication of that oneness. Okay? Are you following what I'm saying? So let's leave Ephesians, go back to Romans. Go back to the Romans piece, chapter 8. Back to verse 29. So again, we were foreknown, we existed in God, according to Ephesians, before the foundations of the world. And in that existence, in that place of existence, it was predetermined that we would be Christ in the earth, conformed to the image of the Son, that we would go through the process. The process is called life, not church, life. All of us are in process. All of us are in process. The process of becoming Christ. Christos in the Greek literally means the anointed one, empowered one. In other words, to live in our own divine nature. Okay? Now, how do we know that we have a divine nature? Because we existed in God prior to our coming into this three-dimensional existence. We were in God before the foundations of the world. And if we use the Genesis narrative, as well as the Quran, its narrative, as well as the Torah's narrative, as well as several other ancient texts that may use different names but have the same narrative, because we do realize that the Genesis narrative is not an original one. Okay? Then when God goes through or gets busy creating all of the lower creation, because remember, we're already glorified, okay? Uplifted, exalted, highest form of creation. Is busy doing all of this other creating. At the end, on what is determined by the narrative, the sixth day, God then forms a body, forms man from the dust of the earth. Not human, forms man. That is a human form. A form. It creates a form for what would be mankind. And then God breathes. That's the allegory or euphemism that's used. God breathes out of itself. What does God breathe out of itself? What is God breathing out of itself into the nostril of the form that's laying lifeless on the ground? Well, what is it that existed in God before the foundations of the world? All of us. What is the only animated thing that existed in God prior to coming into the three-dimensional existence? All of us. We just saw it in the word. We just saw it in your text. And so God breathes out of itself into the nostrils of this particular lifeless form the breath of life, Zoe, and man becomes a living, mankind becomes a living, man becomes, that lifeless form now becomes a living soul. What is it? Man becomes a living soul. The word in the Hebrew that is used is nephesh. In the Greek, the word is suke. Man becomes a living, animated consciousness. Okay? So God breathes out of itself that which it had called, justified, glorified, and predestined into this lifeless form. And the lifeless form now becomes a living or a animated consciousness, nephesh, suke. Now, I ran right past something there, and I don't think you noticed it, but it ties into our conversation that we're going to have this morning, leading us to the principle of oneness. This is the linchpin. Okay? This is the linchpin. And I'm about to tell you what it is. But before I do, I want to reiterate. So we are in this place of existence in God before the foundations of the world, before any creation has ever taken place. And in that place, we are predetermined to be Christ in the earth. We are predetermined that we are given a purpose, a calling. That is, we are set aside for a specific sacred use and intent. That we are justified, removed from all guilt, shame, blame, no curses, no sin, consciousness, and all this other stuff. But, well, sin exists, but the word sin literally means error, but not sin as the boogeyman as we think of sin, as in something wrong with me. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I just made an error. Okay? So he says, free, blameless, without any shame or guilt. And we are elevated above all other creation and infused with an intuitive knowing, knowledge, insight, and understanding. And he takes all of this that he has, that it is created before the world was ever formed, and then blows it, breathes it into a lifeless form of dust laying on the ground. And that form becomes an animated consciousness, a living nephesh soul suke, an animated consciousness. And then Paul, the assumed writer of Romans, declares, if all of this is the case, if all of this is true, if this is the pattern, the fact pattern that God has followed in the creation of mankind and humanity, if God is for us, what and who could ever be against us? Since God is the one who made this choice and decision about all of humanity, what could ever be against us? Whew. That's a lot. Are y'all with me? Are you with me? Because I need to know before I go back, and now I'm going to show you the road sign that the stop sign you just ran straight through in the conversation. Y'all with me? You understand? Does it make sense to you? Talk to me, y'all, in the comments. Derek, good to see you, man. I know I'm going there, Derek. I'm going deep. Are you with me? Y'all with me? The Reddit guy. Okay. Well, hey, Reddit guy. All right. Now, can I show you the road sign? Can I show you the stop sign that you just the train track that we just ran straight across? Back to the little Genesis narrative. Okay, here it is. Here it is. So all of this is done in eternity past. All of this is done pre-incarnate. All of this is done prior to the breathing that takes place. According to the narrative, God breathed into the nostril of this lifeless form, stoic form, the breath of life, the breath, singular, of life, and mankind became a living soul. Not a living souls, plural, but mankind became a living, animated consciousness. Not consciousnesses, souls, but one singular consciousness. One singular soul. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. I know. Man became a singularity. One singular animated consciousness. If we were to embrace the Genesis narrative, which is also the Quran narrative, the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead narrative, and many other narratives, are all aligned with the same one. They switch the names around a little bit, but it's the same story. If we accept this narrative on its face, if we accept it on its face, in this narrative, God breathes once and never breathes that breath again. Did you hear what I just said? I said it. Go back, read it again. All of you Bible scholars who think you know the Bible front, backwards, and sliding down the pole, show me any place in the scripture, in your Bible, in the Quran, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Show me a place where God breathes again and creates another humanity. I'll wait. Put it in the comments. Please show me. I'll wait. Anybody? Show me. Just put up a text from any book, any sacred text, from anywhere in history. Just show me. Doesn't have to be the Bible. It can be any sacred text. Show me a narrative where God ever breathes again. No. Doesn't exist. You know why? Because there was only one soul that was released. And then that soul became divided into individuations of expression as mankind procreated. That's it. If you believe in the whole Adam and Eve thing, well, when God, according to the narrative, wanted another human because it wasn't good for man to be alone. And boy, there's a whole nother piece to that, the narrative right there, because when God initially tells Adam to be fruitful and multiply and tells Adam to go out and start naming stuff, he was looking for a mate that was suitable for Adam. There was nobody there but animals. And the text says that there wasn't found a mate for Adam. That means that found means that they had to be looking. So if there was no other humans, who was he looking amongst? Oh, another conversation. But when that time had passed, and then the text says, and God said it's not good for man to be alone. to be singular. God doesn't say, well, let me make another form, and then I'm going to breathe into that one. No more breaths. I'm going to breathe out another soul. No more breaths. Nope. God then puts mankind, the animated consciousness, makes it unconscious. Shee. Reaches into the form and pulls out a part of that consciousness and creates another form, already infused with consciousness that was in Adam. And it creates duality. Lord have mercy. It creates duality, masculine, feminine. Woo! It creates duality, masculine, feminine, soul, spirit, in one place. Are y'all following what I'm saying to you? Mankind became one singular consciousness, now divided into duality. Masculine and feminine. And from that masculine and feminine, from that duality, all other individuations of that one soul come into being. Not several souls, not several breaths of life, one breath that animated one soul that is individualized into several forms. The body designed to create new forms, the soul and spirit designed to divide itself into the new forms. Every time you reach into the body, like God has done to pull out Eve and to pull out of it birth, you pull out a form already infused with soul. A soul that is predestined to be like Christ, that is called with a specific purpose set aside for sacred use, a soul that is blameless, justified, liberated, and free, a soul that is already elevated above other creations and infused with an intuitive knowing and knowledge. In form. Man, are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Are you following what I'm saying? Is it making sense to you? Does it compute? Y'all talk back to me. My comments are kind of dry right now. It's kind of dry. It's kind of dry. I need to hear what you're thinking. Talk back to me. I've already been over an hour, man. I got to finish this. Y'all come on, talk. I'm going to check my phone and see if maybe some of the comments are not popping up on my screen. And that's why I'm missing them. So y'all tell me. And while I'm checking, if you haven't already shared, share this video with somebody. Share it on your page. Turn the phone down. Okay. Share it. I'm looking to see if there's any comments that I missed. What? Okay. All right. Good. Not missing anybody? That's good. So then, let's go further. Implication of the principle of oneness. This is the principle of oneness. Since we are all the manifestation of one soul, the individuation of one soul, the unique expression and experience of the one soul, the one animated consciousness released into the earth, now individualized in all of these different forms, then we are all intertwined and connected with each other. There is no separation except for the form in which the soul has taken as an individuation. This means, ladies and gentlemen, that you never really meet anyone new. You are only meeting a different version of yourself. Ooh, I'm going to let that one sink in. Let me say it again. Some of you are up on this already because you've been following me for a number of years, but there's some of you right now, this is like a breath of fresh air. This is like a cooling water from grandma's way. Okay, I'm going to let it sink in for a minute. You never really meet anyone new. What you are meeting is a different version of you. And they are meeting a different version or expression of them. Because we are all individuations of that one soul. Yeah. One soul divided into billions upon trillions of individuations, an infinite number of individuations, so that God, the creator of this soul, can experience and express itself uniquely throughout the ages. Because the experience is the point. Are you hearing me? Trillions, an infinite number of individuations and unique expressions of the one singular soul, intertwined and interconnected with each other for the sole purpose of allowing God to experience and express itself uniquely across the ages. And each of us, as an expression and a vessel of expression and experience of the all of everything, are encountering different versions of ourselves as an individuation of soul in different forms. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, tall, short, fat, skinny, old, young, all different expressions of the same soul. Some that are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, Republican, Democrat. Hello? Those are all just labels and titles that individuations of soul have decided to take on as a unique way of expressing and experiencing themselves in this three-dimensional form. But they are just different versions of the same soul. All of us encountering ourselves every time we encounter another human or a man being human. Spirit being human. Yes. So, I'm so glad you said that, Toya. I'm gonna put your comment on screen. She said, so there should be no racism or judgment. Racism, judgment, all of these things are human anomalies. Things that we created on our own because we were given this liberty to be and express whatever we want and whatever we choose without blame. All things are lawful, even though it may not be expedient. It may not be what's best for you. It may not support your highest good. It may not be the best thing for your growth, your development, your evolution, and your process. But you do have the liberty to choose it if that's what you choose. And man has chosen to invent things like racism and white supremacy and segregation and Jim Crow and slavery and hatred and malice and jealousy. And are you understanding? Those are human anomalies. Those are human creations. But here's the thing. If we are the creator, we can also destroy it. We simply have to choose that it no longer works for us, and we choose collectively as one consciousness to annihilate it. But we can never get to the place of annihilating those inventions if we never come to the place of realization that we are one. You can't. It's the illusion of separation that has created all of these divides along racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, governmental, territorial lines. It's the illusion of separation. If we understood and grasped that we were one, then we wouldn't hold on to these dividing lines. It doesn't mean that you erase culture. It means that I acknowledge that your culture, your expression, your experience is different from mine, but we are the same at our core, at our substratum, at our foundation, at our genesis, at our innermost being, our existence. We are the same. One soul divided into billions upon trillions upon gazillions, infinite expressions. One soul. One. And watch this now. This is going to probably shake your apple tree a little bit more. I got to finish. And in every encounter that you have with another version of soul, another version of you, it reflects a part of you that you may be unconscious of. Oh, yes, because if it exists in anyone, then it exists in you. One soul. Lord, I feel like I'm about to run. I said because we are one soul, if it exists in anyone, then it exists in all. So every encounter with soul that you have that you think is adverse, or terrible, or horrible, I don't like them, just know that whatever you don't like about them exists in you, and it's being reflected back to you. Whether conscious or unconscious, it exists. And the reflection, the encounter, is designed to make you aware of it so that you can deal with it. If you fix it in you, you fix it in them. And you are destined to come into this encounter so that the two of you can be awakened to it, or 3 of you, or 10 of you, or 100 of you, and work together synergistically as that one soul to fix each other, heal each other, rescue each other from the monster that we created. Where did hatred come from? It didn't come from God. That's our creation. Malice, envy, jealousy, racism, judgment. Where did it go? It didn't come from God. It came from us. So the question is, well, if God is God and God is so powerful, how come he letting all them children get killed over there in Gaza? That's not God's creation. That's not God's determination. That's ours. We created it, and we're responsible to stop it. And we can stop it anytime we choose. It's not God firing missiles. It's not God dropping bombs. It's not God allowing people to starve to death in the Sudan, in the Congo. It's not God killing millions of people in the Congo. Well, God's allowing it. No, we're allowing it. So I guess you could say God's allowing it because we are God in the flesh. But we're the one asserting our own will, and we are allowing it. Why? All because of the illusion of separation. The illusion has created a delusion that causes us to act erratic and crazy. That's them, not me. It is you. That's their problem, not mine. It is yours. I'm American. No such thing. Human creation. You are a divine individuation of God is what you are. Living in separate lines that have been drawn into territories that we created to perpetuate the idea of separation. Come on, y'all may as well talk back to me. If you can't say amen, say ooh wee. Okay? It's us. Why didn't God stop this? And why didn't God stop that? Why don't you? Quit acting like you the victim here. Like somehow you some helpless being. God is not the one that's to blame for all of this. God is not the one to be blamed for all of this. God is the observer that took what was in him and put it into form and gave it dominion and said, now go out and experience and do. You're free to create and cultivate whatever it is that you choose. And we have chosen as a collective consciousness to create this monster that's eating us alive. Frankenstein. Sitting around here blaming God for all of this stuff. Where was God doing slavery? The same place it had always been. God didn't create slavery. This one consciousness, divided into individuations, made decisions and choices, and created a monster called slavery. To enslave itself. That's right, other versions of its own consciousness. Do you see how ridiculously stupid that is? Yet we do it, we perpetuate it because we are under the illusion of separation. We're in a delusional state. And that's why spiritual enlightenment is called an awakening. You start to wake up from that unconscious sleep and slumber, that comatose catatonic state of thinking somehow you are an individual separate from everybody else. And you become consciously aware of your oneness, not only with everyone, but with everything. Religion has so blinded the minds of so many people that you really think that there's a difference between you and the stars, you and the moon, you and the constellations, you and grass, you and trees, you and nature, you and the seas and the animals and the... Yeah. But all of us have our genesis, our origin in the all of everything. And we, as the individuation of that divinity, encompass that tie, that tethering, that connection and synergy with all that exists. How could we not be moved by the constellations? Oh no, all that zodiac stuff is of the devil. That's not of God. Really? What devil created the constellations? What devil created the stars and moons and planets and solar systems and its movements and its energy? Are you really willing to give that kind of credit, authority, and power to something that you labeled a devil? Are you really that stupid? What is not of God? Please tell me what is not, because if it exists, it is of God. It is either of God or it is of the God creation, the individuation of soul that built this monster. All that it solidly is of God. All the illusions is of mankind. Mankind didn't create stars and moons, planets, solar systems, galaxies. Didn't create trees, grass, water, air, fire. Didn't create any of that. They're all of God. Man created all of the window dressings. God creates space, planets, constellations. Man creates machines that fly into space and warheads that flow through space. God creates the tree. Man creates tables and chairs, houses. God creates water. Man decides to create energy from the water. And soda or pop, depending upon what part of the country you're from or what nation you're from, and coffee, and tea. All of the core creation emanates from God. All of these other variations of creation emanates from the divinity encased in three-dimensional form, individualized across the worlds. Man, are y'all getting what I do? This is the principle of oneness. And this is the great awakening that's in process. I am happy to be able to say it is in the process. We are in process. We are awakening, and it's happening on a larger and grander scale. More and more people are walking away and divorcing the vestiges of religion and culture and governmental ties and ethnicities, and starting to awaken to our oneness with God and oneness with each other and oneness with creation. It is happening at a larger scale. Sometimes I think not fast enough, but I don't get to determine that. And so it is for people like myself and others, people like Derek and others that I could rattle off names of, and people who have existed prior to other ascended masters who've awakened and have entered this form solely for the purpose of enlightening and teaching others, like Jesus or the Buddha or like Muhammad or Krishna. And there are profound spiritual teachers and ascended masters in the earth right now who are teaching and trying to awaken and enlighten. They take on the forms of preacher, pastor, bishops, gurus, ministers, shaman, life coaches, or just everyday individuals who've chosen not to title themselves anything. They're just being Christ. You see them all the time. You encounter them all the time. Not everyone who wears those titles, okay, because the vast majority of them are just charlatans. And I say charlatans not in a harsh way, just simply that they're unenlightened, uninformed, unscholared, unthinking, unconscious. They have just as much value as any other person. They're just unaware of their own value and their ascended purpose. And I don't have time to really unpack the other parts because I really love to get into what those spiritual blessings are and how, and their implication within our life. That is the spiritual blessing of being predestined to become Christ, the spiritual blessing of being holy or called, set aside for a sacred and specific purpose, the spiritual blessing of being justified, given the liberty and freedom to live and express and experience whatever we choose to do without guilt, shame, or condemnation, and the spiritual blessing of being glorified, being lifted and exalted and placed above and infused with wisdom, insight, knowing, intuitive knowing, and understanding. Maybe that'll be the next empowerment session. We'll unpack those 5 blessings that we were all given in heavenly places before the foundation of the world. We were all given them. You don't have to join an organization. You don't have to wear a title. You don't have to believe a particular religious ilk. You simply need to be consciously aware that you have these blessings or empowerments at your disposal. I promise you next week, we'll dive into that and we'll unpack what those blessings are and their implication. Okay? Whew. This was good this morning, huh? I knew it was going to get deep. I knew it was going to get deep. But it was good and deep, and it was good to know, and it's revealing. If you can operate from this premise, from this understanding, you'll begin to see how everything else begins to unfold in your life. You'll get a completely different perspective on humanity and your existence in this world and the role that you play in this world. And you can start focusing on purpose instead of being focused on a whole bunch of other nonsense. All right? Woo! Okay. I want to, hey, Karen, I didn't know you were on here. Oh, it's Kimoria. Okay, I thought it was you using Karen's. Okay. Well, I know she's listening in too, so both of y'all. I love y'all. Okay. All right. I want to give you guys an opportunity to be able to support this platform financially. Listen, I'm trying to build this platform. I'm trying to expand its reach. I need your help to do so. Unfortunately, we live in a market-driven society, and marketing costs money. And I need for you to help me to be able to do the kind of marketing that's necessary to really build this platform and to get other people to tune in and to participate. So I'm going to ask you to participate by giving, but your participation is not for naught, because giving is the universal principle of increase. And I'm sorry, I didn't make the rules, but it is the rule. It's the law. It's the universal law of increase. You don't get more without giving, no matter what it is. Okay? So I'm going to ask you to give today. I'm not telling you a specific amount. I'm not telling you, well, I need this many people to give me 100, this many to give me 50, this many to give me 20, and all that kind of thing like that. But I am asking you to consider the value of what you're receiving and what you've heard today, and then give an offering, sow a seed, make a sacrifice that is commensurate with the value that you gain from this particular platform. Here are all of the ways that you can give today. I'm looking for it, at least. There it is. Boop. You can use our Cashapp or Zelle, PayPal, or Venmo to sow your seed, to give your gift, to support this platform. In doing so, you enact all of the laws of abundance, the law of increase, the law of circulation, the law of multiplication, the law of compensation, all of the laws that govern abundance and attract money and wealth into your life. You activate those laws on your behalf and create a flow of income and increase coming into your life and prosperity by your giving. I'm going to ask you to give your most generous gift today in support of the work that we are doing. Do it now before we leave the air. If you're watching on your device, on your computer, on your laptop, or on your iPad or some other type of pad, take out your phone and use whichever of the apps that you see to give a seed right now. Now, if you happen to be watching on your phone and you happen to be one of those Android people who can't go and use the app without logging out of the broadcast, first of all, why are you still on the Android? Okay, never mind. Let me quit. I'm not going to start the Android iPhone war. But anyway, log out and go ahead and give your gift. I would greatly appreciate your support. But you really do need to get an iPhone. Now, come on, Android is dead. Let's really join the Apple generation. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, I'm being silly now. It's been a really great conversation. I have enjoyed it. Derek, thank you so much. It's not often that you see other pastors and leaders that will join in to a broadcast like this one. I appreciate it. You've been a brother for a very long time. I really appreciate you, bro. And all of you for showing up today. Thank you again. Now go out and ponder over all that I taught you today. Replay this video as many times as you need to. But more importantly, I want you to go out and do something that nurtures your soul today. Whatever that happens to be for you, whether it's taking a walk in the park or on the beach, or having a nice hot cup of coffee or tea with a good book to read, or snuggling up with your favorite person and cuddling for a while, or whatever it might be, do something that makes you happy, that brings you joy, and enjoy the rest of your entire day. And I'll see you again next week at 9 a.m. here for the Emerge Empowerment Session.
Somebody of you are even afraid to dream, afraid to imagine. But I'm here to tell you that you are an infinite, limitless, boundless being. Are you willing to do what is necessary to have what you desire?
You've been listening to Apostle Isaac Miles, the disruptive innovator, a mentor, an author, a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, and the founder and spiritual director at emergelec Life Enrichment Center. Please take a minute to subscribe, like, and share this page. If you'd like to become a partner, you can do so by emailing us at emerge.lifecenter@gmail.com. Again, that's emerge.lifecenter@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for watching.